My name is Myra Whittington, graduating senior Pan Thank you so much, Dr. Angela Davis, for blessing us with your presence here today. And I know we're running short on time, so I'm just going to go straight to my question. So, being a Pan-African Studies major, we do have a lot of artists who are majors, who are singers, dancers, artists.
That's right.
And I wanted to ask you, how important is the role of music and art to revolutionary movements? And while we're on the subject of music, have you seen Beyonce's Formation and or the visual album Lemonade? If so, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's really, really wonderful to be here with you this afternoon. I feel totally inspired by the energy here, the student energy, the faculty energy. But I know we have very little time, so I'm going to skip the preface and go straight to the question. I suppose I would say that there can be no revolutionary change without music and culture, music, art, culture. I think that that artists help us to find ways to express, oftentimes to express that which we do not necessarily know that we need and we want. So it's through the language of art that that future transformations often get expressed. And we could talk about that forever. But since we have little time, I'll answer your second question about Beyonce. And I was actually planning to say something about her in my talk later on. But yeah, I've seen Formations. I haven't actually seen the entire Lemonade, but I've seen portions of it. And, you know, there are those who say that Beyonce's work is about commodification. And it is, right? Because she's probably the best known performer in the world. Or is there?
That's right.
The best known existing. The one who's. Who else? Rihanna, yeah, but I think Beyonce Anybody else? Is anybody else competing for that honor? Okay. So, given that positionality, I think it's really important what she's trying to do. But you know, I think that says less about Beyonce than it does about the movement.
Yes.
Because it would have never occurred to her to do what she did at the Super Bowl or to do Formations had this era not become one of rising struggle. Black Lives Matter. And so I think that art often reflects, it reflects what is happening, and it can also push us further. It can push us to imagine in, and I don't want to be the academic that, but I'll say it can push us to imagine futures in more complicated ways. So I think it's great that that Beyonce is doing what she's doing. And I was also planning to, well, I'll save that. I'll save that to the talk.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Just a quick question.
professor, did you ever feel like you were held back from teaching our reality in the by the institution that you're working at?
Okay, did everybody hear the question?
Okay, here we go. As a professor, did you ever feel like you were held back from teaching our reality by the institutions that where you work at?
Well, my first teaching job was the same year the Pan-African Studies Department was founded on this campus, 1969. So you can imagine that being the only black person in a philosophy department at UCLA, I probably would have to answer that question in the affirmative, but let me tell you what I did, because there were no existing courses, obviously, in the curriculum. And also, this was prior to the development, the emergence of, black philosophy, both prior to the research that led us to be able to engage with older forms of African philosophy, but also it was a time when there were very few black people in the field of philosophy. And certainly very few black women, but we can talk about that later. So what I did when I saw that, there were courses I was interested in teaching, because they actually hired me to teach courses on Marxism, and then I got fired for being a communist. Go figure. So I actually enjoyed teaching those courses because I tried to inject a sense of the ways in which we might use those questions in order to understand the realities of racism, in order to begin to think about what liberation might mean. But I did design a course which I insisted on teaching. That was a kind of a condition of my employment there. And it was called Recurring Philosophical Themes in Black Literature. So I refused to teach philosophy as if black people did not exist. And it was an improvisational course because nobody else was talking about those issues. And so I used Frederick Douglass. As a matter of fact, you just heard the quote from Frederick Douglass that Melina mentioned, right? What was that quote? Absolutely. So Frederick Douglass was the first person that the students read. So I think sometimes you have to push, and you have to ask. How you get around these rules and regulations, and how you overturn them, and how you transform them. But yeah, it's always a struggle, and one can never feel secure. One should never feel comfortable, no matter how much it appears that we have won, because there is always something else to struggle for.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your lifelong commitment to our struggle, so I do want to thank you for that. My question is more around socialism. Being in the Western society, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of negative propaganda around socialism. So my question to you, what is your vision of socialism, or some of the principles that you think are important when it comes to the ideals around socialism?
Well, first of all, I think we have to begin to engage more with socialism. And that means a recognition that capitalism is really at the heart of many of the issues we're engaged with. Capitalism is, as Cedric Robinson, who is the author of the amazing study Black Marxism, capitalism is racial capitalism.
Absolutely.
And so what are, well, you know, I want socialism. I don't want the basic necessities of life to be commodified as they are now. You know, I don't want a condition of being able to get an education coming up with the money. You know, however one does it, that should not be a condition of education. Education should be a human right. Housing should be affordable, and you know, healthcare. Most of us have forgotten. Even in this country, there was a time when you could go to the hospital and you would not be asked how you were going to pay. You would not be asked about your insurance. You would be treated first, and then you would figure out later, and if you couldn't come up with the money, then that got absorbed somewhere else, and you know, by some government. So yeah, I think that, you know, those basic needs of human life should not be commodified. They should be available to all by virtue of the fact that we are human. Yeah. That's it?
That's a teaser.
Oh, we're just getting started. Why don't we do this? Why don't we carry this on?
Well, period, we'll have a longer conversation.
Okay.
So,
A round of applause. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for your incredible words and inspiration. We're not leaving yet. Sorry. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for your incredible words and inspiration to my fellow brothers and sisters. And thank you for representing us in our school so well. Now, to close us out, I would like to bring up the lovely Professor Penny Wilson.
It's definitely an honor and a distinct pleasure to come before you at this wonderful event. And we want to give our thanks to all of the people who were on the program, especially our students. Let me make some space. All right. So again, we're going to give, on behalf of Dr. Abdullah and the